Okay, so welcome to the week 2 go-to session. This will mostly be on preparation for the actual essay that you'll write. Remember, there's only one essay you're writing this month. It's due this Sunday, where you basically explore your topic in more detail. We'll also get into issues of research and APA. That's actually going to make up the bulk of this session. And so, one of the things I'll ask you to do now, if you want, is if you're using your if a lot of you don't have your launch boxes yet, so you may not be working with a MacBook Pro. But if you have Microsoft Word on your computer and you're using a computer right now, not a tablet or a smartphone or something like that, you might want to go ahead and open up a blank document in Microsoft Word because a little bit later in the session, I'm actually going to walk you through how to set up your paper format wise. So if you follow along, you can basically just do it right here and now and have the essential template set up for your essay in terms of margins and all that kind of stuff. If not, you can always watch the recording at your own pace and just skip to the part where I go over that in detail. But okay, let's talk about what we need to talk about tonight. Which is, yeah, all this stuff. Your essay, research, APA. Let's begin with the research side of things. Um, there's a quick overview of what we're gonna cover, which I've just kind of expressed verbally. So I'm gonna go to the next slide. Some reminders. I think I've gotten back to everybody. I've heard from a lot of you, both through your quizzes that you submitted and through the messages you've sent me. But make sure that you checked your feedback from that week 1 go-to quiz because I responded pretty much to all of your topics. And if you haven't already, go ahead and refine your topic. I mean, some of you had great topics right off the bat that I said, yeah, it looks awesome. It has my approval. Others of you were sort of halfway there or maybe 3/4 of the way there, but I still had some concerns or some questions. So hopefully you've been thinking about my feedback and have been adjusting accordingly. Because, yeah, this topic becomes the foundation for your final project, which we'll get into more detail in next week's go-to session, but I think I hinted at it last week. You're going to create an actual public service announcement that takes the form of a video, a song, a podcast, a short comic, etc. So pretty much you're sticking to the topic you've chosen. So it's pretty important that the topic is solid before we move forward. Actually, skip that. Hold on a second. I think that quiz question needs to disappear. Yeah. You think I would have corrected this before class? Okay. Slide gone. Let's talk about research. Okay, really cute picture here. I love that picture. It represents hopefully what you're going to do, even though you won't be doing research. Probably not using traditional books. You'll mostly be doing it online through the Full Sail Library database or through traditional internet searches. At least one source for your paper. Your paper does have to include research. So that means it could be a quotation, it could be some facts or statistics you found. It might just be general ideas that you don't quote directly. You might be expressing it in your own words, but it still needs to be cited because you got those ideas from somewhere else. But at least one piece of research needs to come from the Full Sail Library databases. But second, third, fourth sources, there's just a minimum of one, but I encourage people not to just stop at the minimum. But additional sources can also come from the databases, or they can come from, traditional internet searching. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about research and the point of it. First, actually, all the quiz questions for today are going to come at the end of the session. There are 4 of them. This slide here might have a strong connection to one of those questions. So let me move my control panel out of the way for people who watch this later. But for me, I want to kind of really stress this idea that research to me is like joining a discussion or a conversation. The problem, listen, I was in college once, a long time ago. So I know that sometimes people see that word research when it's connected to an assignment and think, oh, I just need to go run somewhere and find, I don't know, a quotation to throw in my paper. Or I need to find a quick fact and just drop it in my paper. That's not research. Okay, that's you just running and finding something to throw in your paper to meet a requirement. Research is really more about joining a discussion. If you think about it, imagine yourself like at a dinner party, right, where people are grouped together having conversations, serious conversations. Maybe they're talking about politics, Maybe they're talking about current news events. Probably you're not going to join in the conversation if you don't feel comfortable doing so. You'll probably hang out at the fringes and listen in, right? You'll sort of eavesdrop, listen, which means to listen surreptitiously until you feel comfortable to join that conversation and contribute. Research really is supposed to function the same way. All of you have different topics. I can't remember what everybody in this room is writing on. Let's see here. Matthew's doing something about computer security. I remember Rochelle's topic has something to do with children's books, right? The themes that are in children's books. Um, so other people have written about these issues. Okay, people have been having these conversations about these topics and others long before you metaphorically entered the room. So why not listen to that conversation yourself for a little bit? Why not eavesdrop on your own? Here, it's not literally eavesdropping. It's going to take the form of browsing different articles, either from traditional journals or from things that have been posted online, but online in credible places. We'll get more to that in a second, credibility issues. But you'll probably kind of listen, right? You'll read, you'll learn more about the conversation that's always already been happening before you participate. And that's the point of research, is that hopefully you after you've done a bunch of initial reading on your topic, you'll feel comfortable enough to join in the conversation yourself. You'll feel like you know where you are in the conversation. You'll know how to include other people's voices into your own argument. And that's really what the goal is here. Now, I understand that people are very busy, right? I mean, it's quite a requirement to take your 2 classes per month here at Full Sail. Many of you have jobs, you have families. I understand that you don't always have necessarily just endless time to devote to these things, but try to carve out enough time to do enough initial research that you feel comfortable enough to sort of begin the conversation on your own, which will be, of course, your essay. Okay, keep that in mind. Research is like joining a discussion. Now, let's turn the focus to another aspect that's connected to research, which is APA style. First of all, is there anybody here who's worked with APA? Lots of times in high school, you're more familiar with a style system called a MLA. Okay, so John has. There's one person. APA, excuse me, APA is typically new to a lot of students just because, again, it's used in very, very specific fields like education, psychology. Typically, what you do in high school, if you take an English class, you're probably introduced to MLA. Okay, a couple people here have dealt with APA. That's great. That means it shouldn't be maybe brand new to you. John says MLA was preparing him for college. Yeah, mostly MLA and APA are the 2 biggies. Like, depending on your major, depending on your field, you're going to probably use one of those 2 style systems. There's some other lesser known ones like Chicago, but students never have to use those. The good news is, if you're more familiar with MLA, it really is pretty similar in principle. It's completely different in terms of the specifics, in terms of where to put the author's last name or how to capitalize these words in the title, etc. So all those nitpicky rules change, but the essentials are kind of similar. Yeah, John, I don't know why your psychology teacher would swear by MLAs. APA stands for the American Psychological Association. It's kind of their thing. So, okay, we're going to talk about style. Not style like this woman has here, who has fantastic style, by the way, but APA style. Okay, so APA style pretty much refers to a couple different things. First of all, layout and format, which I'm going to do in real time in just a few minutes. Okay, so all that stuff like paragraphing, font size, page numbers, the creation of a header, a title page, all that kind of stuff. Just the basic overall look of the document. But it also refers to 2 other issues. Citing things in text, meaning if a quotation appears in your essay, if a fact or statistic appears, or even, again, if you're just using information that's expressed in your own words, but it comes from somewhere else, it needs to be cited right there and then in the actual paper. And then there's something that comes at the very end of the paper, which is called the references page, where those citations that you briefly kind of referenced within the actual essay gets more treatment. It gets the information gets presented in full at the very end on the references page. Okay, so here's kind of the, how should I call it, the Reader's Digest version, or the in-text citation for dummies series, right? And remember those books, so such and such for dummies. This does not cover every instance of what to do with in-text citations, but this explains like the gist of it, or it gives you a general framework of what you're supposed to be doing. Just a reminder, any quotation fact or information that comes from research needs to be cited when it appears in the essay. And basically there are two ways to handle it. For example, if you have a quotation, I've just put the words insert quotation to stand in for a quotation that might actually be there. So you'll just have to imagine that there's an actual quote here. But one way to handle it is we put the author's last name, or if you want to put the full name, that's fine. But at the very least, the last name needs to appear, along with the publication year for the article in which the quotation appeared, and then a page or a paragraph number at the very end of the quotation in parentheses. Okay? And you use natural language to sort of lead into the quotation. So here, for example, according to Smith, 2008, then comes your quotation, and then we put the page or paragraph number from which that quotation came. Or, if you don't like that version, you can save everything for the end. You could just, again, using natural language, say something like a recent study states, insert your quotation, and then at the end, in parentheses, author's last name, year, page or paragraph number, separated by commas. And the same applies to even if you're just paraphrasing, okay? So you found ideas in an article that you like. Clearly, they're not your own ideas, but they're written entirely in your own words. The same rules apply, okay? You can put author's last name and year at the beginning in a signal phrase, and then save the page or paragraph number for the end. Or you can just save everything for the end. Okay, so a recent study shows that American students are underperforming in comparison to their world peers, blah, blah, blah. Smith, 2008, paragraph 4. By the way, why can anybody sort of sniff out why am I saying page or paragraph number? Like, it shouldn't be either or. You should be using one or the other. But why would you sometimes need to put a paragraph number, not a page number? Any educated guesses? Because I don't want you just sort of flipping a coin, thinking, oh, I could put page or paragraph. You're going to choose one or the other. But why would you sometimes need a paragraph number? Christopher says a map for the reader. Yeah, that's like the global answer. I'm literally asking like why sometimes we would put a paragraph number instead of a page number. Okay, yeah. Lots of good answers. Dustin's got the right one though. If it's an article that's less than a page long or an online article, right? I mean, think of the stuff that you read online, even if it's from a trusted source. So, for example, you're doing a video game related topic, and there's a wonderful article on IGN, right? Awesome article. IGN's a pretty trusted source. You're not going to find page numbers for that article, typically. Okay? So for those sorts of odd situations where it's either an online piece or it's an article that only has a single page, we still need to differentiate somehow and indicate to the reader where that quotation comes from. So we just count the paragraphs. But for the most part, your information, if it comes from the Full Sail Library database, most of that stuff's going to come from actual journals, and they'll typically have page numbers. Okay. Speaking of quotations, I have two quick tips here. First of all is something I call photobombing quotations. So, think of traditional photobombing, right? When someone either by accident or on purpose steps in front of the picture you're going to take, right? We call that photobombing. I like this social media term, photobombing, right? People like to post things to Instagram with photobombs. Celebrities sometimes go around to purposely photobomb tourist photos as a sort of joke. But in the paper, quotations, facts, statistics can almost unintentionally be photobombed because they just appear out of nowhere. So it almost has that same sort of impact of someone who's stepping in and ruining a photo. When I'm just reading along in an essay and I'm doing just fine, and it's like, okay, good, and then boom, out of nowhere, a quotation appears. Right? That's what I call like photobombing quotations. So quotations or any sort of research always needs to be set up. And a quick thing to kind of keep in mind is what I call the sandwich technique. So we set up the quotation, so that's like one piece of the bread. We deliver the quotation, so that's like the meat. Or if you're a vegetarian, it's like the cheese or the veggies. And then we follow up the quotation with commentary, which is like the other piece of bread. Okay, so if we think of the quotations as being part of a sandwich, we'll probably be a long ways towards not photobombing these elements. Okay, because we're setting them up, we're delivering them, we're commenting on them after. So don't just shock your reader with things, because sometimes it's literally like you can imagine like a really tiny drone just flying across the paper and just dropping quotations in. That's not the goal. We need to set things up. The other big thing I see is be careful of long quotations that speak entirely for you. Okay, it's important to remember that occasional use of research is there to help support your points, not the other way around. So I'll sometimes see students who find a long passage, and I can almost see why the passage was attractive to the student because it says things better than he or she ever could. But that's not the goal of using quotations or research, okay? We don't just find long passages that speak for us and stick that into the paper. Plus, if I take those very long sections out of your paper, typically there's not much of your paper left over, okay? So a good rule of thumb is probably 80% of the writing in the piece should be your own, with maybe 20%, 15 to 20% of quotations, research, statistics, facts, etc. Not the other way around, where it's 20% of your writing and 80% of sort of stitched together long quotations. Plus, any quotation that's over 40 words needs to be placed in a special kind of format called block format. It's not difficult at all, but it does require an extra step. You have to make sure that you're following that specific formatting rule correctly. And again, 99% of you won't need to use quotations that are that long. Typically, very long quotations are important when you really want your reader to digest that entire passage because you're going to do something very specific in terms of analyzing or commenting on that passage. So I'm not going to say that you can never have a very long quote. If I can remember, I'm going to show a sample student paper in just a second where there is a block quote that's used. But for the most part, be careful. Okay. So we've talked a little bit about in-text citations. There's another thing, right, that I mentioned on that slide, the references page. So why do I have a big sorry sign up? The reason I have a big sorry sign up is because I don't have enough time in this session or this week or this month to cover every single instance that you're going to encounter that needs to be put on your references page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you where you can find more information. And I'm going to demonstrate this, first of all, also by showing the Full Sail Library database. No, I don't want to end training. Most of you should remember from DGL how to get to the Full Sail Library databases. I just Google Full Sail Connect, and it's always this guy here that has a weird runway.fullsail.edu. It's a good thing if you haven't already to just bookmark this page so you can remember where it is. But again, most of you took DGL, so I hope you remember how to get to Full Sail Connect. And I have no idea why I'm getting an error. Here, let's try that again. Okay, we might have to skip this part of the program. Let's try. What do you mean you can't open the page? That's absurd. Hold on, let me try one more thing, and if this doesn't work, we'll move on. We'll see if connecting to the university's virtual private network helps. Probably not. Let's try that again. Full Sail Connect. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. Okay, we can still survive. I wanted to show you in real time how to use the Full Sail Library database and look for articles, and to teach you a trick for citation. This is so frustrating. Let me see if it's also happening to other web pages. How about our course site? Okay, that's working. You know what? We'll get away from this and I'll come back to it, and maybe it will be working later. I apologize for the delay. How about if I... Here, we'll try this way. Maybe we can get in. Allow. Allow. Okay, awesome. We're in. I don't know why the other link wasn't working. That's one I always use. But here's Full Sail Connect. You can browse for the library through Browse Organizations, or the library is always just down here. So I'm going to click on there. And if we scroll down, we need to click on Research Databases. And this brings up a whole huge, large list. And I encourage you, you can look through a lot of these on your own. Like there's one that's dedicated to gaming. Where is it? Game Sutra. Okay, it's actually a separate website, but it's listed as an online journal through the Full Sail Library databases, so it counts. Most of you, though, are pretty. You'll probably want to start off with the very first one that appears, Academic Search Complete, simply because it's like the most comprehensive. So it's a good place to start. So, okay, we're in. And I'm going to use my topic, the one that I posted to the board. Remember, I'm pretending to be like a game design student here at Full Sail. And my topic was about representations of women in video games. So this will work great because it's such an easy topic that it automatically produces results. So I'm just going to type, I don't even know, women. Get off of there. Images, video games. It's a good thing, I think, to try to use all three fields here in the search terms. I'll hit return. And you can see we got 123 results, and you'll have to go through these. The embodiment of sexualized virtual selves, the Proteus effects. Okay, that sounds a little bit too dense, and plus, moreover, it's not even available. Like, that's another frustrating thing, is you'll sometimes get results that aren't truly part of the library. You need to always look for like a PDF file or an HTML file. We can always go to the left and just click on the filters. So if we just select full text, that will only give us the results for things we can actually get access to. So here we go, gender disparity in video game usage. Okay, that's not 100% on topic, but I might want to come back to that, because after all, as part of my argument, I might want to show that video game companies need to be more responsible in how they represent women on screen, because more women are playing video games than ever before. So maybe this article has some interesting data on that. Slimming company websites in Hong Kong. That doesn't sound very good. Okay, I'm not getting the results I want. Instead of women, how about if I change it to representation? Women video games. That's another thing too. You'll have to vary your search terms. Can people not hear me? Didn't we have this problem last week too? Some people can hear. A lot of people are saying going in and out. Yeah, I don't know if it's a problem on my end or your end. I don't know if it's related to... I'm going to just try to charge forward, and if people need to watch parts of the section... Okay, so you can hear me now pretty clearly, Dustin, when I stop doing things on the page? Okay, I'll try to be more aware of that. Okay, I'll scroll and be silent, and then I'll speak when I'm not doing anything. Yeah, hopefully the recording's cleaner. I haven't heard complaints about the recording. Okay, so what I was saying is that, as you can see, my first search result wasn't really giving me the results that I wanted, so I had to vary my search terms. So hopefully using representation, women, video games, will get better results. So now I'm going to click search and be quiet so people can hear. Okay, so okay, now it looks like we're getting better results. Look at the very first one, right? Big breasts and bad guys, depictions of gender and race in video games. Okay, that sounds pretty good. It's from 2008, so it's not the most current article, yet it's not so super old that it feels like it would be completely worthless. So there's something I would want to check out. The second one is called Still a Man's Game, Gender Representation in Online Reviews of Video Games. That seems a little bit off topic, but still I might want to check it out because there could be sort of tertiary, right? Sort of like information that's still connected to my issue, even if it's not directly based on my topic. And I'm going to scroll and be silent. Hold on. Okay, so it looks like some of the other results aren't great. It looks like the first two came up with the best results, but I would keep playing with those search terms. If you're having problems, maybe your topic isn't as awesome as mine. I don't mean that mine is literally awesome. It's just it's kind of easy to get decent results. Um, I have kind of two tricks. One is what I call reverse engineering, which means begin with your internet research first, because then you can come back to the Full Sail databases with a better sense of what to look for. My other tip, which is kind of along the same lines, is to almost sometimes look for what you know that you want to discuss in your paper. So, for example, I just mentioned that it would be interesting to have data on how the number of women who play video games has actually increased, that they make up a larger portion of game publishers' audience than ever before. Like maybe I would look for those specific things in my search terms. Okay, so you can sort of, if you're not getting great results because you're literally putting in your topic into the search, be creative. Think of other ways to either get the results that you want or to vary your search terms so that you can find different things. And it can take time. I got lucky in that my topic is sort of easy, so I found one pretty decent article right off the bat. But some of you might have to spend half an hour trying to find a really, really decent article. And again, you also have to read the articles to make sure that they're worthwhile and helpful. Because again, the goal is to find as much useful information as you can so you can read it so that you're ready to join in this conversation that I talked about at the beginning of the session. Now, since we were just talking about APA, let me show you a little trick here that can help with citation. So let's go up to that first article on, what was it? Big breasts and bad guys? Yeah, John, you can change your topic. It'd be nice if you run it by me first. But yeah, I think we're not so deep into the course that people can change topics. It's just that you pretty much need to get married to a topic this week. Okay, so here's the PDF file for that article that I found. Now, if you go to the right of the article, you'll see that there are a couple buttons here. One of them is called Citation, or it's just called Cite. And another one is this little chain link looking thing, which is the permalink. Both of these are important if you want to make APA citation easier. First, if you click on the Cite button, it pulls up the APA citation, which is here. I'm going to go ahead and copy it because I'm going to use it a bit later to show a couple things. Here I've gotten really lucky because it has a DOI number. If it has a DOI, you've got everything you need. Like I don't need a URL, which you shouldn't use, by the way, because you should be using a permalink as your URL. But I don't need a permalink because I've got this fancy DOI number. But there are times where your article won't have that. So let me see if I can bring up one of those other articles and show what happens. How about this one? Okay, let me click on the Cite button. Well, I one has a DOI too. Most of yours won't have DOI numbers. I mean, if they do, awesome, because then you've got everything that you need. But I wanted to show an example of one that doesn't have it. This is like the worst session ever. None of the things are working out. Okay, we're gonna move forward because I don't want to bore people with my constant searching for what I'm looking for. DOI stands for Digital Object Identifier, I think. let me double check that. DOI. Yes, Digital Object Identifier. Okay. Basically, it's a fancy way of saying that with that number, I can just copy and paste it in my browser, and it will take me right to your article. If it doesn't have a DOI number, you need to click on that chain link looking symbol to the right and use the permalink, not the URL that's at the top of your page. Because if you use the URL, it's just at the top of your browser. I'll probably get an error when I try to go there. But if you use the permalink, or if there's a DOI, then it will take me straight to your article. Okay, and you can also do traditional internet searches. So again, gender representation in video games. Look, there's a whole Wikipedia article about it. By the way, we know that Wikipedia is not very trustworthy. You learned about that in DGL. But does Wikipedia have any purpose? Can we use it intelligently at all? Can anybody think of reasons why Wikipedia might still be valuable, even though teachers from high school through college scream at you not to use it? Yeah, Rochelle, the references. We've all seen terrible Wikipedia pages. Okay, we've seen ones that look like they were written by a 12-year-old who lives in his garage. We've seen ones that are chock full of errors that don't have many sources or references listed. But sometimes even using common sense, like this one seems pretty well put together. I still wouldn't quote from it. That's not what Wikipedia is for. Wikipedia is more like an encyclopedia. But sure, if I want to go down to the... Oops, I'm talking while scrolling. Sorry. Here, let me scroll, then I'll talk. Right? There's like some 50 some odd references here. So yeah, sure, I can scan through this list and see if there's things that seem to be A, interesting, and B, seem to come from trusted, credible sources. Now, trusted and credible means anything from, you can access New York Times articles online, the Washington Post. If you're into video gaming, it can include things like IGN or GameSpot, general things like USA Today or ESPN. Like anything that is more or less a respected, well-known name that's out there. Game Informer, that's another good one. What we're trying to avoid are things like people's random blogs, right? Discussion forum posts, websites that we don't know who built them. Or I see this sometimes too, things that are really just advertisements for things, like they're trying to sell a book or a software title, but included in that page seems to be, to the students sometimes, a pretty cool quote. But of course you're just pulling the quote from something that's literally like an ad for a product. So those sorts of things we're trying to avoid. But certainly there are a lot of credible things online, and as long as you have at least one from the Full Sail database, then yeah, sure, do more research online. For example, okay, so here's one, IGN, Tropes versus Women in Video Games, Why It Matters. Okay, IGN, respected source. It's the equivalent of an online gaming magazine. It has an editorial staff. It has people that are knowledgeable about the field. And here, again, I'm going to stop talking while I scroll so I can show you how long this article is. Right? Okay, so I might want to read that article, and if there's something useful in it, I might quote it, I might cite it, I might use facts or statistics, but there's a trusted, hopefully credible source that I found online, so you can do that as well. Okay, so what I'm going to try to do now is, if you have Microsoft Word open, I'm going to teach you how to set up your paper format-wise, so that if you follow these steps, you've already got like a template that you can use for your paper, so that when you write your paper, you can literally just hit the ground running, just start typing the actual paper itself instead of learning how to do things on the fly. Rochelle asked, what if you don't have access to Word? I don't know how it works for you people who don't have your Macs yet. Because usually you get a code that's sent to you through email that allows you to download Word, but that might only be once you get your laptop from Full Sail. If you don't have Word, you can use online tools like Google Docs. Microsoft has their own version now called OneDrive. So you have ways now that they're online versions they give you the same tools as any word processing program. John says Microsoft actually gives you Office 365 for free. Okay, so I didn't know that. Office 365 for free. So, because John sent that me privately, I'm going to type that in the chat. Okay, but if you've never used Google Docs before, it's like a whole suite of tools. It allows you to share files. It allows you to do lots of different things, but it also includes like basic tools. So like a PowerPoint-like tool, a Microsoft Word-like tool that has the exact same functions basically as anything else you would use. The problem is that when you watch my steps here, you'll probably have to just, and I apologize for this, just learn where these functions are in whatever tool you're using because they'll probably be different. Not just because I'm using Microsoft Word, but because I'm specifically using the version of Word for Mac. But see if you can at least follow along with the essentials. Okay, so I have a document open. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is set our margins. So on my program, I just go to Layout. And here are my margins, top, bottom, left, right. They all need to be set to 1. And you don't see, but the changes are actually already happening. The ruler is moving to reflect these changes. So, okay, everything's set to 1. Perfect. The next thing we have to work on is creating a header, which is basically this top inch of the page. In my version of Word, I just double-click at the top here. You might be able to do the exact same thing in Google Docs. If not, there's probably a menu function up here where you can find the header and footer. And I'm actually going to, because we have so many people who don't have their launch boxes or they don't have Microsoft Word or this, that, or the other, I'm actually going to teach a slightly simplified version because the header can get pretty complicated because it needs to technically be a little bit different on page 1 than page 2. But that's just going to be a nightmare for you guys if you can't literally follow along with my steps. So let me give like the simplified version. First of all, I have no idea why this is cut off. There we go. Okay, so I'm in the header. I'll just type the words running, head, colon, and then whatever your paper title is, you're going to type it in all caps. So I'm just going to call my paper all caps, place holder title English class. Okay. The second thing we need to do is make sure that we have page numbers. So again, no matter what tool you're using, you'll probably have a function up here where you can insert page number. And in my version of Word, it automatically, the first option is to put it where I want, which is in the top right hand corner. So I'm just going to click OK. And boom, we've got a header. Okay, that's all it is. So I'm going to get out of this. The next thing we need to do is just visually go down to about the middle of the page, and we need to type 3 things. Again, the title of our paper. This time it will not be in all caps. Name and university. Or is it university, then name? By the way, this is actually pretty good because it means that APA is so complicated that even though I've taught this a million times, I even forget the specifics. Let me see if I can open up that sample student paper. This is actually a good lesson. Just as me, your instructor, just as I have to double check things, you'll need to double check things as well. I don't know why my internet is so slow today. I can't get anything to open. hopefully this one opens a little bit more quickly. Okay, let me double check. Come on. There we go. Bear with me, people. I don't know why we're having... It could be too many tabs. I never have this problem. It's just... It's slow. Maybe I should get off the virtual private network. Okay, I'm sorry. Title, name, university. Okay, so back on course. So title, name. I'm going to put my name. University, Full Sail. And then we need to fix this. It needs to be centered. Okay. And we should set up double spacing. The entire document needs to be double spaced. So in Word, it's this little function here with the up and down arrows. But again, you should have all these options up here in a true menu as well. So I'm just going to change this to double spaced. And I'm going to make this smaller for a second. And again, just using your eye, that actually looks pretty close to being in the middle of the page. Right? That works for me. Okay, so this is our title page, our cover page. Okay, we're done. Now we'll just hit enter a bunch of times until we get to the very first line of the second page. And as soon as we get to there, we stop. We retype our title. Placeholder title. Okay, I'll just give it a shortened version. Hit enter again. Make sure that we're to the left of the page. And indent. And just start typing away. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, I'm just going to go nuts and type a bunch of gibberish. And you can keep going, okay? So as soon as you get these basics set up, margins, page numbers, cover page, then you're set and you can just keep typing away. A couple things to keep in mind. Let's imagine I've reached the end of my paragraph. Period. I hit enter once. Not 10 times. Just once. Tab over to indent and keep going. Okay? We don't need like 10 spaces between paragraphs. By the way, I had a student tell me this last month, and maybe it was just him, or maybe he actually was revealing something about the way that a lot of people think. But he was saying that students think it's odd to see no space between paragraphs. But that's MLA and APA rules for formatting. Okay? Or when you open up a Harry Potter book to read, you don't see like 10 spaces between paragraphs. So title, we just hit enter once, start typing away. A paragraph ends, we hit enter once, keep typing away. Eventually you'll get to the end of your paper. So let's pretend that this is page 3 or page 4 and our essay is over. We'll hit enter a bunch of times to get to a new page, and as soon as we get to that new page, we'll stop. Okay? And we will immediately center the word references. Note that the word references, the title, it's not bolded, it's not italicized, it's not underlined, it doesn't have a colon after it, okay? Just put simply at the top of the page, references. And now we can start building our references page. Now, if you're using that citation function from the Full Sail library databases, then it becomes pretty easy. Right? So, there's my reference from earlier. By the way, also fix things like fonts. So the font that carried over from my copy and paste from the research databases is different than the text of the rest of my essay. So I'm going to fix that. Okay. Now, here's the other thing I want to warn about. Oh, by the way, the indentation rules for each of your references, it's the complete opposite of paragraphs. Paragraphs, the first line is indented, but all other lines in the paragraph are not. With the references entries, it's the complete opposite. The first line is not indented, but any additional lines are. So I'm going to fix that right now. Oops. Okay. The other thing that you have to fix is, by the way, use the citation generator on the Full Sail Library database. It's awesome. But you have to fix the small errors that it makes. This one is mostly correct, but it loves to put the author's name in all caps. Sometimes it loves to put titles in all caps, and that's not correct. And actually, there's a small problem with the title here. APA, and this is a little bit different than MLA. In MLA, you always capitalize the first letter of key words in the sentence, so not words like and in. But in APA, you capitalize just as you would a normal sentence. So all these need to be fixed. Okay? So I'm making this all lowercase. If a proper name appeared in the title, like a person's name, that would stay capitalized. And boom, that's looking good. That's perfect. And if we take an online source, we pretty much follow the same rules. Okay, we have an author's name. Who is it here? Paul Dean, not Paul Dean. Don't confuse it with Paul Dean. Paul Dean, right? We have a year, 2013. We have a title, Tropes versus Women, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we have everything we need. The only difference is that when we go to our references page, let's just pretend, for the sake of argument, that this was the IGN article. We would just have to put the words retrieved from, and then copy in our URL. Okay? And it does funky things, like it creates too much space sometimes, but hey, that happens. But it really is that kind of simple. Let me see. There's a question in the chat. Is it all right to use justified for the main essay portion? I'm not sure what you mean by justified. I mean, I know what you mean, but I'm not sure what the question means. The margins are set to 1 inch all around for the entire essay. If you mean that everything can be pushed to the left without being indented, no. Like the first line of a new paragraph has to be indented. No. You shouldn't be fooling around with things like that if the ends of lines are uneven, because it can create sometimes some odd spacing issues between words. No. It's perfectly normal for paragraphs to look like this. Not filled with gibberish, of course, but no, that's fine. You have other resources you can use. For example, okay, a lot of your readings for this week from McGraw-Hill deal with APA. I'm not going to go into McGraw-Hill because the internet's just working too slowly for me tonight. But everything that I've gone over, in-text citations, the references page, etc., is covered in those McGraw-Hill chapters. So if you need a second opinion or a second glance on things, you can find information there. You also have attached as one of your assets for the essay assignment this PowerPoint presentation called APA Basics. This is an awesome presentation that was created by another instructor in the English department. It's about 50 slides long, but it would only take you 20 minutes, 30 minutes to go through it. I encourage you to do so, because if you do so, you will have zero questions about APA. Like, it covers things so thoroughly that you will not be confused about anything. So I'm not going to go through each of these slides. It explains what APA is. But look, the stuff I went over, like an in-text citation, what does it look like? It looks like this: last name, year, page number. It also answers questions that I can't get into in the session because there's not enough time. But what do you do if the article has no author? Well, you just use the first 3 words of the article and put in quotation marks, right? What if there's no publication date? Then we just use the abbreviation ND, lowercase, separated by periods. What if it's a 1-page article or an online piece and we use a paragraph number? Okay, it gets into the stuff I talked about, that anytime you quote or use someone's words, it needs to be cited. But when you get deeper into the presentation, look, it also discusses, again, what I just went over, like how we need to incorporate this information within an actual sentence. But if we get deeper into the presentation, it tells you what not to do. But then it gets into issues of like the references page, right? So author's first name, initial, date, title. And again, it handles like, what do you do if there's no author? Well, we just begin with the article title. It shows you again that titles are capitalized following the rules of just normal sentences. So we don't capitalize words like deficient, students, lazy, etc. Okay? So this thing is like super awesome, and it will cover all of those nitpicky questions that you might have. I'm not against people messaging me with questions. That's fine. But I do want you to do some of the initial work first. Actually, not some of it. I want you to do most of it. But absolutely, if you're confused about something or one of the finer points of APA, get in touch with me. But you do have all this information at your fingertips, okay? So use it. And I'm not trying to pass the buck. I'm not trying to be like the lazy instructor. It's just that You've dealt with APA or MLA in the past, right? In high school, or if you've taken a college course, so you know just how detailed it is. Like, all of APA's rules, or even all of MLA's rules, are contained in like an entire book. So we're just giving you the kind of essence of what you need to do. But you do have a lot of these finer points in these materials that you have available to you. Okay. Oh, let me see if that thing that was taking forever to load before is working now. Of course not. Oh, okay, there we go. I went into the wrong activity. I want to show you quickly like the sample student paper that you have to look at too, because this can also serve as a model. Let me see if I can get in there quickly. Okay, awesome. Here it is. You have this thing, Appeal for Action Essay Example. So the cool thing about this is twofold. First, you can see an example of a pretty decent student paper, so you can kind of get the gist of what these things look like. But second, when it comes to APA formatting issues, you can kind of see an example, right? So here's his running head, his margin. Here's his title page. I've changed his name. His name isn't really Rick Grimes. He does a really good job of like setting up his quotations. So if you want to get a sense of how to do that, here it is. Like right here. Let me see if I can make that a little bit bigger. Like, according to USA Today, 2010, it's better to rely. Actually, technically, if there's an author's name, you should put the author's name, not USA Today. So even here, there are small errors. But okay, according to USA Today, 2010, it's better to rely on parents to impose limits rather than. Okay, so there's a long quotation. He technically, he should have a page or paragraph number here. So he makes small mistakes, and that's kind of part of the reason why I showed this as well, because it really is a good essay, and he did well on this assignment. But there are tiny errors that occur. But he does a good job of setting up the quotation. Like, not just literally the quotation itself, but the entire thing here fits naturally within the entire paragraph. He comments after the quotation. Here's block format, if you're not sure how to handle that. Okay, so here's a very long quote that's longer than 40 words. He's got his own references page. Anyway, you can read through this on your own. But here's an example of what a previous student wrote, so that might be useful. Okay, let me get back to my PowerPoint thingy. Okay, so the essay itself. The good news is you do have that model, that the kind of student example of a paper that was written a few months ago to look at. I don't have tremendous advice on how to put your essay together because there are so many ways you can do it, but here's kind of like a pretty solid way to think about the essay. Okay, you've already written an introduction, or you were supposed to have written an introduction for the first week's discussion, right? Where you hopefully began with some sort of interesting or opening move, beginning with a stat or a quotation or an interesting question or an example or a personal anecdote. And then you briefly define the issue, and then you deliver your thesis, which is what you want a specific audience to do regarding your topic. Okay, so you're going to have an introduction paragraph. Next, you're going to just further define the issue using separate paragraphs to make separate points. Okay, so with my video game example, maybe I want to spend one paragraph talking about how the numbers of women who play video games have increased. So I would have one paragraph about that. If I move on to another point, I would have a separate paragraph about that. So basically, introduction will define the issue. Make sure to just, focus some time on your call to action, what you literally want your audience to do, what you're encouraging them to do. Spend a paragraph or two if you have a lot to say before you get your conclusion. But sometimes students skip that part, or not skip it, but sort of forget about it. Like, they're awesome with the introduction, they're awesome at defining the problem, but when it comes time to actually explain what they want a specific audience to do, they sort of either skimp on that, not giving it the full treatment it deserves, or they just kind of miss it entirely. And then finally, of course, we need some sort of conclusion, a short paragraph that brings the essay to a satisfying close. But this is pretty basic stuff that I think a lot of you have gotten in high school, right? Introduction, body, with paragraphs dedicated to separate topics, and a conclusion. So, same thing here. Exact same thing. Rochelle says, are there penalties if we go beyond the 2 to 4 page limit? No, I mean, technically there are, but I'm pretty kind. I would just ask that the stuff that goes beyond 4 pages should be pretty good. Like, in other words, I'll keep reading as long as I'm interested. I mean, actually, I'll keep reading anyway. It's my job. But, like, I'll be happier if what I continue to keep reading is interesting and needs to be there. Occasionally, yeah, I'll see papers that go beyond 4 pages, but usually not too much longer. And by the way, that's 2 to 4 pages, not counting the cover page and the references page. So you don't get to create a cover page, fill up 1 page, and say, there's my 2-page essay. So that's at least 2 full pages, not counting the cover page and references page. Okay, who's ready for quiz questions? I feel like I skipped something, but I can't remember what it is. Okay, here's quiz question number 1. Let me move the quiz control panel out of the way. Engaging in research is like participating in a... fill in the blank. Okay, we talked about it at the beginning of the session, the very beginning. That you need to think of research as like joining or participating in a hoedown? No. An Easter egg hunt? No. Okay, so that quiz question is pretty easy. Quiz question number 2. Dropping in a quotation out of nowhere is similar to what social media? For example, Instagram. Annoyance. Okay, I made a pretty literal comparison between what it's like when you just drop in a quotation out of nowhere and a specific term that you young people like to use that's related to social media. This is my attempt to be the hip instructor by showing how with it and contemporary I am. Okay, there are 2 more questions, and these aren't really so much questions. They're more like things you need to do and show me. Sort of like in last week's quiz when you had to propose a topic and name an audience. So here, quiz question number 3 and number 4 are actually asking you to do something. So here we go. Number 3. Go to the Full Sail Library research databases. Find an article. Okay? Once you find that article, name the title, the author, and the publication. Briefly summarize the article's main focus. Okay, you don't have to go crazy, but write 4 or 5 sentences that give me the gist of what the article is about. Okay, and listen. Oh, and you should be finding an article that really is hopefully useful. I mean, ultimately, if you don't use it, that's okay. You're not penalized. But every so often, there's a student who finds something that's wildly off topic because they're just looking for any article. No, you should be finding an article that you might consider using. Okay, but I want you to start using the Full Sail Library databases. So find that article, name the title, author, and publication, briefly summarize it. Very funny, John. And the final question, which isn't a question, it's more of a command. For that article that you just found, okay, give me a reference. Okay, a references page, so that thing that appears at the end of the essay, not an in-text citation, because some students get confused and give me an in-text citation. No, that's stuff that goes on the final page, the references page. Give me an entry for that article. Okay, I want you to show me that you can follow APA rules for creating a references page entry. So all that stuff we talked about, right? The DOI number, or if there's no DOI number, you need to copy and paste in the permalink preceded by the words retrieved from. You need to fix whatever errors. If you're using a citation generator, you need to fix whatever errors that generator creates, right? I said it loves to put authors' names in all caps. It loves to either put the article title in all caps or to capitalize keywords, even though that's not APA style. I know I'm giving away half the quiz question and answer by covering all this stuff now, but I want you to get it right, okay? and rely on those tools that I showed you, the APA Basics PowerPoint presentation, the McGraw-Hill readings. You have everything you need to answer this question correctly. Okay, questions about anything, about the essay, about APA formatting, about research, about anything else related to the class that's either due this week or just. By the way, awesome job for just about everybody with the first McGraw Hill module. Like, I think I do a good job of telling people to do it because it's free points. Believe me, there are other instructors that they're always saying, "Oh, my students aren't doing it; they're not completing it." It's like, no, you have to yell at them. I'm not a mean person, but yell at them to do it. Don't give up those free points. So I was really thrilled to see, like, everybody, like 100%, 100%, 100%. Just keep that up. I actually have one student in one of my classes. He's done for the month. He spent 9 hours one weekend doing all 4 activities, including that month-long one. It took him about 9 hours. But he's all done for the month. So his 15% or whatever it adds up to is 100%. So, yeah, you don't have to do that. Someone asked for quiz question number 3. But yeah, keep up with it, okay? And I've been hearing from people, it only takes like an hour or two to get through those weekly modules. So, yeah, find time to do it. Oh, Minghui's done too? Okay, good. Awesome. That's what I like to see. Eventually, you guys will be so good at it that I'll have to start yelling at the department like, "This is too easy. we need to we need to make this a smaller percentage of their overall grade." No, I'm just joking. It's great. Oh, look, Rochelle's bragging. Took her 20 to 30 minutes. Yeah, I think if it's easier for you, or if you're familiar with some of these concepts, or the month-long activity is more grammar and sentence structure based, like if you're pretty solid in those areas, it can take considerably less time. And if it takes more, that's fine too. That's what it's there for, to sort of give you that preparation and knowledge that you need. So don't worry if it takes you longer than Rochelle. Uh, yeah, John, you're right. I think it's pretty fair. You devote 9 hours to that dedicated activity. And that's not. I think that's on the short side. I think he did a pretty good job with it. It will probably take people closer to 12 hours. Um, yeah, so that was great. So, any questions you have for me? I know I covered a lot of stuff, and I know that there were some technical issues. People couldn't hear me. The internet was slow, but I hopefully I covered the main points. Dustin says, "You said we don't have to do all the questions that are part of the reading, right?" Yeah, if you mean like the literal things they ask you, like the readings are all very short, right? They're usually a paragraph or two, but sometimes they ask questions at the end. Is that what you're asking about? Or are you asking about something about the modules themselves? Because you never have to do those sorts of questions or thought questions or mini activities. Yeah, anything that's part of the reading, you just need to do the readings, just like the information. You never have to do the actual things they're asking you to do in those chapters. That would be a lot of work. And can I be mean and say that I don't really want to grade all of your responses to those various questions for every single mini chapter reading throughout the entire month? So no, just read the stuff. Oh, you can't skip them? Maybe I'll have to look into that. I tried out the older version of McGraw Hill's modules, but they've redone them a bit, and I haven't had time to go through and practice them on my own. So I'm a little bit confused. Readings aren't. Maybe we're talking about two different things. The modules are interactive, and you need to complete, but the readings you just click on them and read them, right? You can click your back button, choose a different reading, and go on to the next one and the next one. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've never. Are you saying there's like a function in there where you should be able to click on the next arrow and it doesn't take you to the next reading? Yeah, just go back to the main page and click on the very next chapter or reading. It could be too because we choose sections and passages from the textbook, so they may not be perfectly sequential. So you might not be able to just click on like a next button or an arrow to get to the next reading. I don't know. That's just my educated guess. Anyway, I don't want to trap people in the room. If people are comfortable with what I've gone over and don't have questions, you're allowed to go and enjoy the rest of your evenings. I'll hang out here a little bit to answer questions that people do have, however. Man, I have this sneaking suspicion that the stupid thing didn't even record. Oh no, it's recording, I think. Of course, I haven't stopped the recording, so people hear me saying that the stupid recording didn't. I'll have to edit that out. Or maybe not. Yeah, everybody can hear me. And then the weird thing is it's still being recorded too, so I'll have to edit out all this stuff, my mumbling and my referring to the stupid recording before I upload this for everybody to watch. David says on the EBSCO host, where is the publisher? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Once you get into your specific article, it should have all that information. So, for example, like the one I copied over, it already has the name of the title listed, like Journal of Creativity and Mental Health. So your article itself, once you find one through EBSCOhost, will have all that information: author, title, publication. Yeah, I don't know. I do restart my computer a lot. I just it's running hot now, I guess. Yeah, I'm on Maverick. I just updated the other day. Is that the issue? Okay, so maybe that's what it is. I literally upgraded to Maverick the other day.